بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي آمين آمين. For those of you who are viewing this recording, perhaps it's going to look a little bit different than what you had experienced in class. And for those of you who are viewing it and you weren't there and this is your first time seeing it, then it won't look any different. What happened is that I forgot to record the first class, which was my fault. Inshallah ta'ala, there may be some hiccups technically in the beginning. So please bear with me and be a little patient with me, inshallah ta'ala. But we're going to re-record this lesson. So what we began with speaking about first off is what exactly are you getting yourself into with this whole ARC Intensive thing? Well, the ARC Intensive is the flagship Taqwa program for beginning your Arabic journey. And essentially what it serves to do is a three-prong approach, right? There's three parts to this. The first and what you're a part of right now is learning your fundamentals of the language. We're going to study the different types of words in Arabic, the signs associated to that, as well as what happens when you string words together to create fragments, right? And the different versions of that, and then how that applies and how that's put forward in sentences and the different types of that to communicate a full stop in terms of meaning. And then finally, we'll look at actually the different types of words and how they can be constructed, right? And the different forms that are formulated from that, as well as some types of sentence modifiers. So what this course kind of serves as is your base mark foundation of how to work with the Arabic language, inshallah ta'ala. The second course, which many of you who are taking this program right now are being bridged into, is going to be taught by Ustad Hassan, inshallah ta'ala, in October. And essentially what that course focuses on is the concept of morphology, or in Arabic, sarf. And what that looks at is essentially how you change the structure of a word to produce new meanings. So we're going to do a deep dive on that, as well as Quranic vocabulary. Then the third course is stringing everything that we've learned together so far into sentence structures and applying that to the Quran to derive and learn the grammar of the Quran itself, right? And then what this entire, ARC program, which is supposed to be your beginning of Arabic studies, leads you into is the Islamic Scholarship Program, or the ABC. And what you'll be doing there in terms of Arabic is actually engaging with tafsir work, reading different works of the Muhaddithun, reading different books of fiqh, reading different books of spirituality, and looking at them in the Arabic language without any harakat. So this course is not solely leading you into the journey of just simply or of just only solely engaging with the Quran, which in and of itself is a huge achievement. No, what we want to do is produce perhaps people who are willing to research the Quran. And do you have to go to that degree? No, but it's available for you, right? And if you want to hop out after this course, there should be enough of a foundation for you to actually be able to go and attend other Arabic programs in different places to get another footing in Arabic, inshallah ta'ala. So without further ado, let's actually begin the course. And let's begin with the concepts of the two types of sentences, right? So in Arabic, there are two sentences. There is a nominal sentence and there is a verbal sentence. Every sentence that will spring forth from that will go back to this very foundation. Every concept that we learn in this course is going to go back to that very foundation of a nominal sentence and a verbal sentence. So getting this down is very much so the bedrock of your understanding in this science, inshallah ta'ala. But before we can get to a sentence, we have to actually observe and figure out and determine what sentences are made up of. And those are words, right? So let's talk about words. So the three types of words, right? So in the Arabic language, there are three types of words. Now, this is different from English, where we actually see 8 types of words, right? This is redacted in Arabic. And then we have some categories that tend to stretch a little bit bigger. So let's take a look at our 3 types. The first type is a fa'il, right? Which in English is translated as a verb, right? So we have a fa'il, which is a verb, right? And those of us perhaps that haven't brushed up on English grammar in a while, and it's been some time. I know I was definitely there when I started Arabic, and they were dropping like pronoun, predicate, adverb, and assuming I knew what that meant, I had no idea. So a verb is an action word, right? So like to sit, to jump, to drive, to write, to care. Anything in which you're performing an action, boom, you have a fa'il, which is a verb. Let's take a look at some examples in Arabic. Nasara, right? This would mean Okay, this would mean he helped, right? And what's interesting here, and this is a small thing to know, but we have a single word here, nasara. It's one word in Arabic. However, when you bring it into translation, there's two words here. He helped. So we have the doer and we have the verb or the action itself being that's taking place. What's important to note here, small tidbit, is that sometimes you'll have a single word in Arabic. However, it will translate to be multiple words in English, right? Small thing to keep in mind. And this concept of he, I can tell that this is embedded in this word based on the way that it looks. But sometimes it will be she, and the word will change in its appearance a little bit. It will conjugate, similar to French. So inshallah ta'ala, we'll get into that in the coming weeks. That is just simply a heads up. Fataha, which means he opened, right? And again, this is a fi'l. Then we have something like sami'a, which means he heard. Cool. So that's our first type of word. It is an action word or a fi'l. Then our second is a harf, right? And generally in English, this translates to a particle. However, most people don't know what that means, and it's not always one-to-one between English and Arabic. So what is an interpretation of this from the Arabic language standpoint? A simple translation is a small word, so a small word that has an impact on another, right? Or an impactor word, as one of my students said before. So let's take a look at some of these examples. For example, we have fi, which means in, right? Or we have wa, which means and, right? That's a very, very common harf that comes up pretty often in the Quran, as well as just regular Arabic writing. Inna, which means definitely, right? So if you have some form of doubt, you bring an inna into the picture and it reassures you that this is the reality. So we have a fi'l, it's our first type, which is a verb or an action word. Then we have a harf, which is a particle, which is a small word that has an impact on another. What that impact looks like and how it manifests, we will study inshallah ta'ala in the coming weeks. Okay. Then we have the last and final one, which is an ism, which generally people translate as a noun, which is a person, place, or thing, right? However, in Arabic, it's a little bit more expansive than that. In fact, it's a little bit more like a supernoun, right? It's a person, place, thing, adjective, adverb. In essence, it is anything that is not a harf or a fi'l, right? So I'll add that. Anything that is not a harf or fi'l is going to fall under this banner of ism. Let's take a look at some examples. So you do Baytun. Baytun. This would translate to house. It's a place. What if we wanted to do like, an adjective? Then, we could say Tawil. Tawilun, which means tall, right? And then let's say we wanted an adverb, and we could do something like fawqa, which indicates to an actual location, right? It means above, right? All of these things count as an ism. So this category of ism is a little bit more broader than person, place, or thing, right? And that's something to keep in mind, inshallah. Okay. So how do we determine an actual sentence? Determining a sentence. As we said, there are two types of sentences in the Arabic language, and they're going to be constructed of like a fi'l, harf, or an ism. It's one of those three for every single word that you see that makes up a sentence. So how do you actually figure out that what you're dealing with is a nominal sentence or a verbal sentence, right? So it's quite simple. A sentence will be known based on the word that it begins with. So if it is a ism or a noun in the beginning, then it will be a nominal sentence, right? Which in Arabic, nominal sentence is jumla ismiya. right? Jumla literally means sentence, while ismiya means nominal, right? So a nominal sentence, one of our two types, right? And the same applies for a verbal sentence. Okay, for a verbal sentence, which will begin with a verb, right? And again, verbal sentence, this is known as jumla fi'liya, fi'liya, right? Which literally just means, verbal sentence. So those are our two types. Let's take a look at some examples. Okay. Al-baytu jamilun. In this instance, this is going to be a nominal sentence. How can I tell that? Because the word coming in the beginning is an ism. Inshallah ta'ala, we're going to start getting into ways to decipher these and tell the difference. But right now, the main point to remember is that it begins with an ism. Therefore, it is a jumla ismiya, or in English, a nominal sentence. This would mean the house is beautiful, right? The house is beautiful, right? Have there a nominal sentence. So let's take a look at a verbal rendition of this. خلق الله آدم. Adama, right? It means Allah created Adam, right? This is a verbal sentence. How can I tell this? Because it begins with khalaqa, right? So this is going to be a verb in the beginning, so it distinguishes it as a verbal sentence. Okay, so now that we know how to determine the difference between a verbal sentence and a nominal sentence, how do we figure out our parts to actually construct this sentence? So let's do a deep dive on a nominal sentence. The nominal sentence is built on two components, right? The first is the subject, which in Arabic is known as mubtada. Now, what do I mean by subject? If I say the house is beautiful in our nominal sentence here, the house is the thing that we're talking about. It's the central focus of the entire sentence. Everything that's going to be stated and said after it is going to go back to that subject to tell us a little bit more about it, right? So the house is beautiful, right? So that's our mubtada. It's the focus of the sentence. The second part is our khabar, and for consistency, I will also highlight this in red. The second part is the khabar, which is some type of information. Khabar just means information, or I'll say here, in English, it's known as the predicate, right? And this is known as the khabar in Arabic, right? It's just some information about the subject, right? What do you want to tell me about this subject? What is the assertion and reality that you want to portray to me about this subject? If I say the book, well, what about the book? What do you want to tell me about the book? Is light, right? Or is big, right? Or is small, right? The predicate, everything that's going to come after that is, right? That's going to be the thing that you're informing me of. So we hit a little bit of conundrum when we're jumping between English and Arabic, right? And it's this idea of the is or the are or the auxiliary verb. So in English, an is or are is inserted between the subject, remember that Arabic is mubtada, and predicate, khabar, right? So what do I mean by that? Let's take a look at some examples. The book is old, right? The book is what I'm talking about, and the information that's provided about it is the fact that it's old. So an is dropped in between, right? Between my subject and my predicate. The tree is massive, right? Again, we have an is being dropped in between. And if I said, the houses are beautiful, then in this case, an are is being dropped in between. And the reason why we're switching to are is because my subject is plural, right? So when your subject is plural, then you use an are in English, right? However, the problem that we encounter here, the Arabic language does not have an equivalent to is or are. Rather, we must look at the structure of the sentence and signs associated to the words in it to determine where the subject and predicate are, right? So let's put a sentence forward. If I say al-baytu jamilun, right? This means the house is beautiful, right? As we've seen before, house is beautiful. I like that in red. Okay, the house is beautiful. How do I know that this is my subject, right? Well, what gives away that it's my subject is the fact that it is definite, right? You can see the word the here, and that's a signifier that you're dealing with something that is definite. And what do we mean by definite? It means that it's something that's specific. You're referring to a specific thing, as opposed to something that's indefinite, it's non-specific. So in English, this usually works where the is utilized to make something specific, which makes it definite. While an a is used to make something non-specific, which is indefinite, right? Right. So if I were to say the house, like if I said, go to the house, you know which specific house I'm referring to. However, if I said, go to a house, then that's general. It could be the house down the street. It could be the house next to you. It could be the house across from you. It's general, right? It's not a specific thing. So since we have the coming in the beginning, and the in Arabic is symbolized by alif lam, right? It makes this word here definite. That's my sign that I'm dealing with a mubtada. And there's one other to it. It's the fact that it has a dhamma ending, right? So let's note down our signs here. Signs of the mubtada, right? Well, the first sign is that it's going to be definite, meaning that it is specific. Now, this can be shown with alif lam, but it's not always going to be an alif lam. Perhaps there's another way that it's going to be specific, and we'll study those inshallah ta'ala. But the example we have before us is alif lam, which is equivalent to the, right? The second is that it's going to have a dhamma ending. Dhamma ending. Simple as that. What about our khabar? So signs of the khabar. The khabar will be known by having, again, a dhamma ending. However, the ending is going to, or the word is going to be indefinite. And the way that we can tell that it's indefinite is that it has what's called a tanween ending, which is essentially a double ending, right? So if you see an un ending or an ending or an in ending, where there's like a double fatha, double kasra, double dhamma, then you know that you're dealing with an indefinite word. And what's important to note is that it is important to note that a tanween and al cannot coexist in the same word. This is equivalent to saying, you know, like if I were to say, let's say, in Arabic, al-baytun, right? It has alif lam, which means it's specific because it has al, so it's definite. And then we have a double ending on the end. So then it's indefinite, right? So it's non-specific or general. Well, what are we left with here in translation? That would be the house. It's not possible. It's always got to be one or the other, right? Okay. So let's take a look at a few more examples of the nominal sentence, such as Al-Qur'an, Al-Qur'anu kitabun, which means the Qur'an is a book, right? And for those of you who are viewing this for the first time, please take some time to try translating this on your own. Translate it in your mind or write it down. Qalam means pen, صغير means small. So what would this translate to? Okay, cool. I gave you enough time. This would be the pen is small. And again, how can I tell that this is how it should be translated? Well, I am dealing with a nominal sentence because an ism is coming in the beginning. I can tell that this is my subject that I'm speaking about. Why? Because it's definite, meaning that it's dealing with a specific pen. And I can tell that via the alif lam in the beginning. And it has a dhamma ending. Now I can tell that this is my khabar, right? So this is my subject, this is my predicate, my mubtada, my khabar. I know to drop is in between because the word that's coming after my mubtada has a double ending. So it has a tanween and it's a dhamma ending. So we drop the is in between, and that becomes your two parts of the nominal sentence. So let's get into the verbal sentence. Verbal sentence. So the verbal sentence is made up of three parts, right? First is a fa'il, which is a verb. So as we studied, remember in the beginning, there are three types of words. There is the fa'il, which is an action word or a verb. There is a harf, which is a small word that has impact on another. Then there is an ism, which is anything else that's not a fa'il or a harf, right? So a fa'il would be something like, nasara, which means he helped, or fataha, which means he opened, or kasara, which means he broke, or daraba, which means he hit, right? So this verb, you have to see one of these in the beginning. You can identify then that it's a verbal sentence, right? The next component is going to be your fa'il, which is your doer. Because when it comes to enacting an action, right, like hitting, jumping, sitting, eating, someone's got to do it, right? And that's going to be your fa'il, which means doer in Arabic. And the fa'il will come after the fa'il, always. It will come after the fa'il, and the sign of it is that it will have a dhamma ending. And it will have a dhamma ending, right? Then our last thing is the maf'ul, which is essentially a receiver, right? So if an action is being performed, you have someone who's performing it, but what are they performing that action on? Who's the one who's actually taking the action in? That's your receiver, right? And the one receiving will have a fatha ending, right? Simple as that. So let's take a look at some examples. Nasara, Zaydun, Muhammadun. Sorry, Muhammadan. Right? So in this case, we have our fa'il coming, and then we have a ism coming after it that is in a state of that has a dhamma ending, right? As you can see. So the telling case there that is going to be my doer is that it has a dhamma ending. And then my receiver will have a fatha ending, which we can see here with Muhammad. So nasara means to help. So can you guys take a chance to try and translate that? See what you can get. Okay, so it would be Zaid helped Muhammad, right? And again, how can I tell that? Well, because whenever I see a verb come in the beginning, I know I'm dealing with a verbal sentence. Therefore, I need to ask myself two questions, and always two questions. Who is my doer and who is my receiver? My receiver, or my doer, sorry, is my fa'il in Arabic, and that will be with a dhamma ending, which in this case is Zaid. So Zaid helped. And then who's the one receiving the help? It's going to be the guy with the fatha ending, which in this case is Muhammad. Zaid helped Muhammad, right? Take a look at some other examples. خلق الله آدم. Adama, which translates to Allah helped Adam, right? And this is a small point here. When we are referring to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Arabic grammar, you don't want to say, Allah is the one with the dhamma, or God's name is the one with the dhamma, or God's name is in a state of rafa, or apply any of these things to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in that way. So out of respect, what the ulama have done, and you will find this quite often in the books, is that they will refer to this as the laf jalala, right? So that means the honorific or the elevated word, right? And in this sense, we would say the laf jalala has a dhamma ending, not that the name of God has a dhamma ending. We want to avoid that. Don't want to say that, right? It's just adab or etiquette, right? And let's try one or two more examples. So qatala Dabudu Dabudu Jaluta, right? So take some time and try and translate that. Qatala means to kill, right? This is the standard example that you find in many of the grammar books. Just take a moment to try and translate that. Okay, so Dawood killed Jalut, right? Which, if you wanted to bring this into the Arabic, or sorry, the English equivalent, it would be David killed Goliath. One more example. فتح الإمام المسجد, right? So fataha means to open. Imam is, your imam of the masjid, and then masjid is masjid. Try and take a shot at translating that. Okay, cool. So fataha is our verb. So we distinguish this as a verbal sentence. Then we got to ask ourselves, what are the two parts that we need to look out for, which is your doer and receiver. Your doer, which in Arabic is called the fa'il, is going to have a dhamma ending, so the one performing the action. And then the one receiving the action is going to be the one with the fatha. So we would translate this to the imam opened the masjid. All right. Okay, it's cool. So let's just do some quick review of the components that we have and that we covered. Insert it in. Okay, so we began talking about these three types of words because our focus of this lesson today is the two types of sentences, and you can't talk sentences without knowing words. So, three types of words. Second. Types of words. Okay, the first type is the fa'il, which is an action word. It's an action word, and it's something like, fa'ala, which means he did, right? The second is a harf, which is a small word that has an impact on another, right? And then the third, which we spent some time on, is an ism. And essentially, we said an ism, usually translated as noun, or in reality, it's more of a supernoun, meaning it's going to be anything that is not a harf or fa'il. Simple enough. Those are our three types of words. Now we got into the two types of sentences, right? So the first was a nominal sentence. And the sign of a nominal sentence is that it begins, with an ism, right? That's how we tell the difference between the two types. There's only two types. There's the nominal, which is jumla ismiya, begins with an ism. Then there's the second, which is the jumla fa'iliya, or a verbal sentence, which begins with a verb. So that's our sign. What are the two parts? The two parts are the mubtada and khabar, right? and the mubtada is our subject. So what are you actually talking about when it comes to the sentence? What are you focusing on? What do you want to tell me? And then the second is the information that is brought forward about the subject, right? And the way that we can tell that a mubtada is on the basis of it having a dhamma ending that we talked about and being definite, meaning it's specific. It's not talking about a general scenario. It's speaking about something in specific. And one of the ways of telling that was with alif lam, right? It wasn't the only way. It was just one of the ways. Throw that in. Huh. This works. Cool. Then we had khabar, which is going to, once again, just like the mubtada, have a dhamma ending. And the thing that makes it different is that it will be indefinite, meaning it will have a tanween ending. Interesting. Not sure why that's happening. Just try and correct that. Cool. All right. Good stuff. So 2 signs there. Okay. And then we talked about the verbal sentence. Cool. Verbal sentence. And the sign of this is that it actually begins with a verb. Sign, it begins with a verb. Now there's 3 parts to this one. Unlike the jumla ismiya or the nominal sentence where there's only 2 parts, this one has 3. And the first is that there's going to be a fa'il that's going to start you off, and that's your verb. Then there's going to be a fa'il, which is a doer, and that's going to come with a dhamma ending, right? And then finally, you will have your maf'ul, which is your receiver, and that will come with a fatha ending. Fatha ending, right? And this is everything that we've covered so far. If you got this down, then inshallah ta'ala, you have this first lesson down. And I wouldn't take this first lesson lightly because what it serves as is actually your foundation to actually move forward with the rest of the course, inshallah ta'ala. Every single thing that we learn moving forward is going to come back to these 2 main concepts. And you're going to have to understand these concepts from a mild degree right now. We're not getting into the intricacies. We're not getting into the crazy things and all the little exceptions here and there. But from just the standard fundamental perspective, you need to know these 3 things. And we'll begin to build on it, inshallah ta'ala, in coming weeks. And that's our first lesson. Alhamdulillah. So I'm going to try and remember some of the Q&A questions that were asked to me. So one of them was, how do we sign up for the course? How do we sign up for the course? You can contact program.taqwa.shift@gmail.com, and our admin, Anam, will get in contact with you and help you sign up for the course. Another good question that was asked is, how should we take notes? Well, this is a great question. This really depends on what kind of learner you are. I know for me, one of the most difficult things when I started Arabic was taking notes. And it was, in fact, it was very, very much so. It made the experience insanely difficult. What we do in this course is that we actually type up the notes for you. Every class will begin with a blank canvas like this, and we'll type up and we'll build the lesson from scratch. Then I will refine these notes and provide it to you. So if you sign up for the course, you'll be added into a WhatsApp group, which will give you access to a Dropbox where you can actually access these notes, inshallah ta'ala. Will classes be recorded? Yes, yes, 100%. Classes will be recorded, every class, and I'll remember to press that button, inshallah ta'ala, unlike today. What will occur is that classes will be recorded and they will be put up onto a student portal where you can access them. However, for now, while that's being set up, we're going to have a YouTube playlist that's provided to you, or you can just access it through it. Again, that playlist will be provided in the WhatsApp group when you sign up. So you'll get the Dropbox link for the notes as well as the recordings. And then a final question that was asked was in regards to, are there any supplementary reading? Another question is actually, what are examinations like? We'll talk about that as well. So are there any supplementary readings? I'll do a quick showcase of this. So one of the things that we did with Taqwa is that we built our own in-house text, right? So this is a textbook that Ustad and I worked on for quite some time, Ustad Hassan. And it has about 40 chapters, and it's going to cover everything that we cover in this course, but not to the level of detail that we'll cover in this course. We're going to dig a little bit deeper in this course, but the fundamental concepts that we're built off of are all available in this book. And if you sign up for the course, it will be available to you, again, in that WhatsApp group through a Dropbox where you can access all of this stuff. All of it will be there. So if you want to do further reading on a course to get a little bit more, of a refresh on a particular concept, then it's available. And you can actually dig into that and you can try and do some reading on it a little bit further. The book is extremely graphical. It's supposed to be very easy on the eyes, and a lot of spacing, easy to digest. It was built with graphic design in mind, and obviously people who are beginner to the language too. So it's supposed to be very easy to kind of get into. So it's there, not mandatory reading, but it's there as a supplementary reading if you need it, or if you'd like to go through it. The second thing is a workbook that's actually been designed from the ground up. Our standard classes will actually have an assignment provided to you guys at the end of every week, which we'll work through, inshallah ta'ala, over the weekend. It's not generally long, it's just a couple of pages or maybe one page. And you'll work through that assignment, inshallah ta'ala, along with a vocab sheet, which I'd like you guys to commit to memory. And then on Mondays in class, for like the first 20 to 30 minutes, we'll actually have a quiz that it's not going to be long, just maybe like 4 or 5 questions, but it's going to test you on some of the things that we've learned before and practical application of it, as well as some of the theory to make sure that you're doing it. And again, every single class is set up to be engaging. Just like how I stopped today to ask you guys questions, as we get further along, there's going to be more questions, more interactions. I'm going to want you guys typing in Arabic as well as in English, and we're going to be figuring out interacting together in these sessions in a one-on-one type of nature, because it's private messaging, right, through the messaging of Zoom. Inshallah ta'ala, that covers that. And the last question there that I could recall is, what are the examinations like? And as I said, there'll be a quiz every single week, inshallah ta'ala, which will actually make up the basis of your mark for this course. So if this is something that you're interested in, please contact Sister Anam through the program.taqwa@gmail.com course, so you can be added into the group and we can get you into the know-how. Again, these courses will run Monday to Thursday, 7 to 8 p.m. And it's going to run all the way into October, inshallah ta'ala. And the aim is to get you to the foundations of this course with teaching the theory through these classes with application, as well as running through one section of Qisas an-Nabiyyin, which is the stories of the prophets, and applying everything that you know, inshallah ta'ala. So with that, I will conclude the first lesson. If you have any questions when you view this recording, please feel free to reach out to me or Sister Anam. And with that, inshallah, we'll conclude. Subhanallah bihamdihi, subhanallah al-azim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.